Hi everyone, I am here this morning to chat with Oliver from the Oracle Journey. Oliver is located in Singapore, hence the early live for us and the late live for him. I'm so excited to talk with Oliver. He's a collaborator on the Seams Tarot, Southeast Asian Myths and Stories Tarot. It's going to be really great to chat with him about the process of collaborating for this deck and the creation of the Knight of Cups card and our tarot practices and everything. So I'm just going to see if I can. There we go. Hey, Oliver. Um, oh my goodness, it's so
Hi,
nice to
Jules.
meet you
Yeah,
face
hi,
to face.
evening.
Just gonna see if I can get this up a little bit more. Okay, yeah. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for joining me. It's so
no
lovely to
problem.
have you
Hi
here.
from Singapore. Hello.
Hi from Nova Scotia.
Mm. Happy new moon in Taurus and a happy Beltane, right?
Yes, for
And
you
so
as
many
well.
things happening today too, right?
Yeah, I know it's a big day for so many things. Yeah, it's hard for me to believe that it's May 1st already. I'm not sure where the first 4 months of the year went. It's gone by really, really quickly this year.
Yeah,
Um,
like amazing. The time flies super fast this year compared to
oh, it
last
really
year.
does. Yeah,
Mm.
it really, really does. It's
And
amazing how
I
quickly.
guess because of the opening up in Singapore, I'm not sure whether is it the same in Nova Scotia side, but yeah, people are kind of away for the long weekend because we are off work until like Wednesday, and it's like
Okay.
free since Friday actually.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's we have a long weekend coming up here in a couple of weeks for Victoria Day.
I see.
Unfortunately, numbers here in Nova Scotia are really bad at the moment. We have one of the highest COVID rates in Canada. So we're still staying close to home just because it feels a bit anxiety provoking, but I know that's not the case everywhere. And it's so nice to be able to get out and do things again because it's been quite restricted.
Quite a long time kind of battling it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah. That's so great. So I wanted to start. I know we're going to chat a little bit about the Seams Tarot. I said
Yeah.
a bit about that in
I
the
have my set
introduction.
ready, so it's over
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, you had collaborated on the design for this amazing Knight of Cups. I love it so much, and I'd love to hear from you what that process was like of collaborating, working with Rowan. I know you're the treasurer for the Tarot Association for Singapore, right? Is that how you guys made the connection for?
Actually, we made the connection when we were working on Sims Tarot. So we
Okay.
kind of contacted me and say, okay, do you want to design a card? And
Yeah.
personally, for me, right, among the entire tarot deck, the Fool is actually my favorite card.
Oh, amazing.
And because it's kind of like the numero uno guy that starts the entire
Hmm.
tarot deck, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
first, okay, could I
absolutely.
do the Fool? And then, oh, somebody else have done the Fool. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I might be a bit late. So could I do the Ten of Swords? Because that among the minor arcana is actually my favorite card. And okay, somebody
Yeah.
has done the Ten of Swords. That's it. Oh, okay. So could I do the Three of Swords? Because that would be my second favorite minor arcana. It's like, oh, that's actually been taken by someone else. So
Oh,
I did ask of justice. So Knight of Cups was actually my favorite card, and that was my fifth choice. And yeah, I'm
that's
glad that it was like, okay, I get to do that card. And the original
awesome.
idea for that was actually it's actually based on a Buddhist myth in Southeast Asia side. Okay, you can say that it starts in Sri Lanka because
Mhm,
Hinduism, Buddhism, they kind of have the general roots in the same area. So
mhm.
the depiction is actually of the Naga king
Ah,
Mukalinda, yeah, and his legend was that he was the serpent that kind of okay, Naga is actually a serpent, half serpent and half human. So he
mhm.
was the Naga king that kind of protected and sheltered Buddha when Buddha had his ascension. So I was like, okay, if I were to do the Naga king, that wouldn't that be the King of Cups? So since I'm doing the Knight of Cups, this is a prince version of him before
Yeah,
he got famous as the guy that protected Buddha.
yeah,
So I kind of foreshadow his destiny inside the card also because if you see the sun, right, there's
yeah.
actually the hand praying inside. So kind of him looking at his future destiny as a king, but now
Ah,
he's just a prince.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I love that you've
And I told Rowan,
incorporated.
I need the wave to look lifelike, and I need him to look really grand and majestic. Especially, I
Yes.
like the trident. I think the artist, my original artist, couldn't make it in time. And when I did this concept, I was actually in the hospital last year, so I was like, I had to do a Zoom call, video call with Rowan, and
Yeah.
we had to get a Malaysian artist to draw it. But I'm actually very happy with how the result turned out. And he's really, really grand. His trident, the waves and the sun and everything. There's actually a lot of backstory to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning artwork, and I've really enjoyed going through the guidebook and reading all of the myths associated with each of the cards. I lived in Malaysia actually when I was 13 months till I was 3, and came back to Southeast Asia with my parents when I was the summer I was 12, and then again with my husband when we were teaching English in South Korea. I guess it would have been February of 2004. And so I've looked a lot into Southeast Asian mythology. I'm a huge fan of cuisine. We just recently found a Malaysian restaurant actually in Moncton, which is 40 minutes from us across the border in New Brunswick. And being able to have curry laksa and roti canai and
Oh,
kway
that's
chow and
nice.
all of those things was
Okay.
just instant comfort food. So it was really
Do they have
nice.
masala tea here over there? I mean, I love a good cup of masala tea. The
Oh
Indian,
yeah, I'll have
kind
to
of like
check
the
if
Indian
we
chai.
have
I
that.
call it the Indian chai. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look because it's primarily Malaysian, but they have some fusion with a few other things as well. And
Correct.
yeah, it's really, really exciting. We follow plant-based diet now, but I was a huge fan of rendang as well back in the day. And yeah, yeah. So anyway, it was just so nice to go back to the mythology and see all the imagery, and it really has a soft spot in my heart for all of that because it's something that I have seen a lot of over the course of my life, and it's really lovely. So it was really
I do
cool.
love stories. That's the reason why I told Rowan, oh, okay, since you are doing a deck on stories, okay, count me in. Because,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
whether it be Greek or Polynesian or
yeah.
Inuit or even the Nordic, right? It's like, it's amazing reading all the stories. And
Oh,
I
it's
mean, I
incredible.
started with Greek mythology. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, okay, that's really a whole bunch of gods and goddesses with very interesting backstories. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
I sometimes
yeah,
make fun of them, like, I always joke that in Greek mythology, right? Half half of Greek mythology started because Zeus did something wrong with Hera, and then
yes,
half the
absolutely.
monsters is because Hera got angry with what Zeus did, and they came up from half of that. Yeah,
All
so
the
that's my
fun.
intro. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I homeschool my kids, and we've studied a lot of mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, and they're really passionate about all of that. It is so fascinating to me to see the similarities between different stories and traditions. They're in different parts of the world, but there's crossover in terms of, the lessons that are being taught and the kind of, I
or the
guess,
moral of the story.
cautionary tales, moral of
Yeah,
the story. Yeah, exactly. So we actually looked at a lot of them through Rick Riordan's books. We started with Percy Jackson and then went through all of it. And then we paired that with all the mythology texts and looking at the different stories. And it was just so fascinating to
yeah.
see how excited my kids got looking at all of those things, right? And for me too, it was so amazing to revisit all of those stories because they're fascinating. Like stories and myths are how we make sense of our lives, right? Even now. So it's really cool to be able to look at them in different contexts in different parts of the world and different traditions. And yeah, it's really, really cool.
And yeah, probably I would like to talk a little bit about it was my second favorite card. I mean the card that the minor arcana card. So this is the Ten of Swords. So
Oh
it's
my
actually
gosh,
the story of
yes.
Red here. So in the historical myth, right, basically there was this Singapore was actually besotted with this danger that it's kind of like a Malay fishing village in the story, and that
Hmm.
we were being surrounded by ocean, and the Malay villagers were being attacked by swordfish. So and the Sultan then couldn't think up of any idea, and this little boy just came up to him. Shouldn't we kind of build like I think they use banana tree. I think the trunk of the banana tree to be a fence, and when the swordfish attack, right, they would just get stuck in the banana tree trunk. I think it's banana tree or bamboo, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
And that was how most of the swordfish actually got captured and killed, and the crisis was averted. And then, but then the king and the sultan then was like, okay, this boy is too smart for his own good, and decided to just kill him that night. And then his blood just flowed down the hill, and that was how the story of radio came to be. And I kind of love this story because when I was growing up in my like I spent my toddler days until like maybe when I was 12, growing up in this area actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I stay in this area. Like, could I do the Ten of Swords? Like, okay, someone feed me to it. But I really love the way that it is depicted. And because
Yeah.
Ten of Swords is like a very kind of mental thing that,
Yes.
I call this my insomnia card. What keeps
Oh
me
my
up at
gosh.
night?
Yeah.
So it comes along with the Nine of Swords. Like, you'll be worrying about your anxiety and your stress. And then this is like
Yeah.
the culmination of the anxiety and stress.
Yes. Absolutely. My son is in Gemini, and I looked at the astrological correspondences and numerology and everything, and it's actually associated with the 8, 9, and 10 of swords, the decans, in terms of, because I'm June 8th. And it was so fascinating to me because I struggle with a lot of anxiety and insomnia too. So I always associate that with the 9 and 10 of
Okay.
swords, right? Because it's
Insomnia,
that thought
yes.
patterns. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's terrible. Especially over the past couple of years for sure. But yeah, no, there's definite associations with I would say the 9, 10 Knight of Swords, that racing kind of thought patterns and ideas and needing to kind of quiet your brain a little bit. So I love that you made that association.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a
I did
stunning card.
learn numerology first officially, so that
Yeah,
I really feel that kind of helped with the grasping of the meanings and the concepts of the minor arcana.
yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
it's so fascinating because I know you had mentioned that you work with numerology and a bit of astrology too, along with magic and mediumship,
yeah.
Basia, and energy healing. Um, and I'd love to ask you now, like, how do you incorporate all those different elements? You said you'd started with numerology. So what has that been like for you in terms of your practice? Like, how do you incorporate those different elements? What drew you to incorporate them? Yeah, I'd love to hear more.
So for numerology, a lot of people talk about your life path, right? So
Hmm.
in terms of astrology, that would be like your natal chart. So to me, that's something that cannot be changed because once your birthday is fixed, right? But what
Yeah,
I am really fascinated by is actually your personal year, because
yes,
that in a way is like your day master and your year master. So
yep,
that to me is something that I can change and enhance and make it better. So be it
yes,
whether I'm
absolutely.
using a crystal like this, or I'm using like herbs. So that's where
Yep,
the magic come in. And I have to use my Southeast Asian culture. So I did a
yep,
research into wood actually. So this is actually a
oh,
wood
amazing.
from Malaysia side. It's called
Yep,
Penawa Hitam. And it's believed that in Malaysia, the Bomo, which is kind of like the witch doctor,
mm-hmm.
witch doctor in indigenous culture, or you call shaman, they kind of
Yep,
use this to kind of block negative influences, entities with bad intention, or basically, what you term as black magic. But to me, there's no colors to magic. I
no,
can use good magic to hurt someone. I can use bad magic
yeah,
to help someone. So it's
yeah,
actually a lot about
absolutely.
the intention and the energy. And cards to me,
Yeah,
right? Technically, they can do more than just divination. Even tarot can be used to do magic. And
mhm,
that comes
absolutely.
to the next deck I'm going to share. So if I'm doing like a tarot related kind of spell, right? So this is
Yeah.
actually my favorite deck, Greek Crowd.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So I don't really use this for reading. This is kind of like a museum thing. But when I
Yeah.
need to do anything related to tarot magic, then I'll use this guy.
Oh, that's amazing. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like, tarot has so much potential for so many uses outside of just the 78 cards and the major arcana fool's journey and then minor arcana correspondences. Like, there's so many applications for tarot, which is absolutely fascinating, and it can be used in so many different ways, which is,
Correct.
I think, part of what draws me to it, because I could study tarot until the day I die, and there's always something more to learn. There's associations and correspondences and more to unpack all the time, right? So it's
And
really
like
fascinating.
really novel ways of using it. Like it
Yeah,
has never been explored before. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's a practice that you can come to from so many different perspectives, and that's I think what makes me so excited about it, right? Like, I mean, you can come as a long time, very familiar reader, you can come as a new reader, and whatever perspective you bring, you can take something from it and gain something from it and learn more about yourself, learn more about the world around you, reconnect with your sense of magic and play and excitement, right? It's really amazing.
And that's where
That's
the food comes in, right? Because it's all about that play and seeing the world through innocent
yeah.
eyes. Yeah.
Yes. And that's very much Fool energy too, which I love so much. So what is your birth card and what's your card of the year for this year? I'm so curious.
Okay. Okay. I guess for me personally, I call it the haunter card or the stalker card. So if I
Yeah,
were to pull cards for myself,
yeah,
uh, Hermit has been following me for quite a while since the
yeah,
end of 2020, like
yeah,
around the Christmas period. Until now, it still pops up quite
yeah,
frequently. Yeah. And
yeah. For me as
lately,
well.
personally, for my personal draw, it's the Three of Cups. Yeah,
Okay.
and that happens to actually be we have a tarot theme park, like a place where people drink, and every Wednesday, Friday night, and Saturday night we get tarot readers doing complimentary readings there for
Oh,
their
amazing.
patrons. So the name of the place is really called Three of Cups.
Oh, that's
And
incredible.
we
I
do
love
hold
that.
our meetings there also for the Tarot Association. So it's like that card has been haunting me, or no, I would say it's haunting, but stalking me. So
Yeah, yeah,
and the Hermit is still around somewhere in the shadows. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting when cards keep popping up like that. I've been getting the Knight of Pentacles a lot in the last year, along with the Hermit, actually. And as someone who's a reforming type A and trying to not push forward constantly all the time, like I have for most of my life, it's been really good leaning into that energy and really embracing it and seeing how I can tune into myself and figure out, pacing is really important, I find too. Like it's not like you can't do the thing, but maybe doing it at a slower pace can be more manageable. So it's really interesting. Yeah,
Because
that's really, really
for
cool.
me, the Hermit kind of foreshadow or preempt me because when I got it in December, right, that time I was actually still on a course studying digital marketing, and
Mhm.
it kind of like, okay, there will probably be a time when you need to be away from everybody. So actually, for
Yes.
March last year, Rowan knows actually I was actually in March in hospital for almost a whole month for pneumonia,
Oh,
and for the
Jesus.
first half of that period, right, I was actually in isolation ward, and I was like, okay, now I know why the Hermit turns up because
Oh,
I was alone, and I was actually
yeah,
quite happy because that was also kind of like the peak of COVID in Singapore in a way.
yeah,
Yeah, so like being away, and then your lungs is not in the tip top maximum optimal condition. That was also good, and being away in that room, it kind of feels like I'm the emperor in that kingdom, and the
yeah,
emperor
yeah,
had time to re-strategize and rethink,
yeah,
like what I want to do with my life, how should
yeah.
I reapproach it, and yeah, so that was actually a good time, good alone time lah. And I usually, I mean, when I do readings for people, like you need to have time alone. I
Mhm.
can only read for people when I'm in a condition where I have enough to share. If
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
operating at my operational frequency, right? I can't help anyone if I can't even help myself. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's so important. And I think that's part of the magic of that hermit card, right? It's like so often we need to take that step back and that step away to reassess and regroup and to refill our cup, right? I mean, it's good to give to others. It's important, but if you do that to an excess, then you're drained at the end of the day, right? And you have nothing more to give. So if you, I don't know, I've kind of the Hermit was my card very fittingly for 2020 in terms of my numerology for that year.
Mm.
And so I really took a deep dive into it and I realized how important it is to do that process on an ongoing basis, right? To
Yep.
stop, to pause, to reflect, to tune in and reassess like what am I putting my energy towards? Is that what I want to be doing? How can I shift my focus? How can I refill my reserves so that I in turn have more to give, right? It's
Yes,
an
correct.
important process. Yeah. I've come to love that card so much, for sure.
Yep. Mm. So shall we maybe I would like to know, like, for you, how did it begin, and then
Yeah, and I
wonderful
think the
journey
same
lah.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I picked up my first tarot deck at a small metaphysical shop in Calgary, Alberta. I want to say it was over 20 years ago. And it was a Mystic Fairy Tarot, which actually my daughter has. And I kind of dabbled with it for off and on for a few years. And then she was born in 2009. And the day she was born 7 weeks early. And it was a huge shock because I wasn't expecting that to happen. And that morning, a friend came over to visit, and our kids were playing together because I have an elder daughter as well. And I just had this really strong instinct to pull out this deck. I was like, this is so weird because I'm only dabbling in it. Like, I haven't really felt that strong an attachment to it yet. But I had this really strong intuitive pull that I needed to pull out the deck. So I pulled out the deck and I pulled a couple of cards. I can't remember exactly what they were, but the messages that I got from the reading was that I needed to trust my intuition and that the thing I was most afraid of wouldn't be as bad as I feared. And without missing a beat, I said, I'm so afraid that this kid is going to come early because I've been under so much stress. So my friend left at around noon, and I had my daughter at 8:37 that night. Um, and my labor was really quick. I was in shock the whole time, right? It wasn't until the next day when I was sitting in my hospital room reflecting that I was like, oh my gosh, I got the message that I needed most from that deck right when I needed it the most. And it was a process of trusting my intuition. So once that happened, I started working with my deck more closely and exploring it more. And then, about 5, 6 years ago, well, I guess 2016. So yeah, about 6 years ago, I had a friend on Vancouver Island who introduced me to the Wild Unknown deck. And it kind of opened my perspective on tarot. I love all the natural imagery in that deck. I really feel connected to nature imagery, and doing a deep dive in some of the images in that deck can be quite jarring. Like the death card is very, like, it's a decomposing bird. And, when I first started tarot, I think like many people, I was really scared of the death card and the tower, and I'm not
Either that
anymore.
or the devil. This
Yeah, and
tree,
the devil as
this tree have
well.
a
Like,
bad reputation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like there's all these like bad cards in the tarot, and I don't honestly believe that anything is good or bad. There's multifacets to everything. And the
Yeah,
more I
correct.
practice tarot, now when the death card shows up, I smile and I love it. And I think, there's so much to learn from it, right? It's not necessarily always easy,
For
but
me, that is
when I
actually a control alternate delete card. Like I need, okay, it's time to restart the computer. Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly, absolutely. And that whole idea of rebirth and renewal and transition and change, and that can be a difficult process, but in my experience, it's always necessary. And if I don't do it myself, then usually there's that tower moment that comes in to kind of do it for me, right? So,
Yep, correct.
um, yeah, but I did a really deep dive into that deck, and I started pulling daily card pulls. And when I lived in Malaysia when I was little, my parents took me to a cobra mongoose fight, and the cobra lost interest in the mongoose and darted for me. And I think that's probably, I have a really strong snake phobia. And I think that's probably what it stems from. But working with that deck was actually really therapeutic because all of the wand cards are associated with snakes. So the process of working with those images closely over the course of, I'd say a year, I used that deck almost exclusively, was actually really therapeutic and really helpful. And I realized how much tarot can be a tool for healing as well, right? With
Yes,
all of
correct.
that. And then since then, I've, taken an even deeper dive into tarot and Lenormand and oracle decks, and I've been exploring a little bit of Tarot de Marseille as well. And just kind of the more I explore numerology, astrology, like adding all these different components to my practice, and it's been really fascinating to see how much that can enrich my relationship with tarot, and it's become a daily practice for me. And it's been really helpful actually through the pandemic to help me manage my stress and manage my anxiety and give me a grounding point for my day. I usually wake up in the morning and pull a bunch of cards. I've got a daily spread that I use, and I usually follow a challenge or two every month because it helps open up my perspectives. Like different prompts will help me see the cards in different
I
ways.
do follow your IG page. It's actually fascinating, some of the things that you share. Yeah,
Oh,
and the challenges are always fun. I remember I did one from Hermit's Mirror, Thomas. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and Rowan, I had a live with him, and Rowan had live with him also. So that's like how I get to know him and get to know you through Rowan actually. And yeah, the tech challenges are interesting actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Thomas is incredible. I love his content so much. It's really, really incredible. I have his Lifeline Lenormand and Lenormand, and over the course of I think it was March, I did a deep dive into Lenormand, and I used one of his decks, and it was so fascinating to work with those images. Like it's such a simple illustration with a black and white line art, and yet it's so rich with meaning. And I found that process really fascinating. Yeah, I feel so lucky to be part of this community, honestly. There's so many incredible creators and practitioners, and it's amazing looking at different people's posts and seeing their insights on tarot and what it means to them and their relationships with the cards. Yeah. So how did you get started with tarot? I've been rambling on about it.
No problem. Okay. Well, currently, well, I guess I'm 46 now. So when I was 12, there was this book fair thing in one of the shopping mall.
Yeah,
Currently, it's called Vivo City, but in my time, it was called World Trade Center. And
yeah,
when I was just there to buy like school assessment books and things like that, and there
yeah,
was this store selling cards. I mean, I thought they were like playing cards or poker cards, right?
yeah.
So I had this deck. So the box is no longer with me, but this is Osho Zen Tarot. So I got it when it was 1975 plus 12. So that would be 1988, 1989. So
Yeah.
when I shuffled, right, and I got this card 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
So this is a
Wow.
Hierophant card, and
Yeah,
in Osho Zen, it's called nothingness. Instead of
yeah.
nothingness, there's a no and then a hyphen. So I was
Oh,
like,
I
oh,
like that.
okay, this is interesting actually, because when it comes to magic, right, for me, I love breaking things and restarting. So same
Yeah,
like the death card, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
in a way, some people call that chaos magic. I mean, I call it void magic because that's like negating.
yeah.
So in X-Men, that would be like Rogue's power. No, if somebody
Yes.
wants to do bad things to me, okay, negate, avoid, yeah,
Yep.
and this card really speaks to me because it talks about like, everything in the world in Buddhism or in Zen, right? We start from
Mhm.
nothing, we go back to nothing.
Yeah.
And that,
Oh, that's
that
incredible.
darkness, there's no fear. And I always
Yeah.
joke that, I've gone through enough of my dark night of the soul. Like I lost count how many dark nights is there, but if there's another dark night, I would probably be the Joker in the Dark Knight, like making fun of Batman. Yeah. So yeah, I will be the Joker. I will laugh through the entire darkness, and eventually I will walk out into the sunlight somewhere. So that's why
Oh,
death and the fool actually kind of resonates for me, and
yeah.
sometimes the Hierophant do. And at least this Hierophant does resonate for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that concept of clearing space and no thingness. Like that's such an
Kind of
amazing.
like a um kind of telling me, I mean, in the younger days, like before Marie Kondo came out, right? This is kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like the Marie Kondo of all the tarot cards.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, and that's interesting that you mentioned Rogue as well from the X-Men. That she was always my favorite character, her and Storm. When I was a kid, my
Storm too.
brother had
Mine too was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, let's bring on the storm. Yeah.
I've been a fan of the MCU since I was a kid. I used to steal my brother's comics and read them on the sly, and I like the Scarlet Witch a lot too, and just that whole concept of magic and manifestation, and
Is
yeah, it was
Doctor Strange on starting on your side already? Because it's starting premiering, I think, this week on my side. Doctor
yeah,
Strange in the Multiverse.
it's opening on the 6th of May here, so I think that's next
Oh,
Friday, maybe.
same as
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're super excited. We've been watching all of the trailers and combing all the footage, and we watched the what is it? What happened? The animated series that was about the alternate realities, where you've got Captain Carter and like all of that, and
Yeah.
it was fascinating to see how those components are being incorporated in the trailers, and it looks like they're incorporating a lot of that. I mean, it makes sense with the alternate universes and everything, but I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. Me too, me too. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, usually I support the villains. So there's actually
Yes.
one deck. It's somewhere in my shelf over there, but
Yeah.
uh, probably too late for me to pull down. I should pull it down. But when I think Inside Publishing, or
Yeah.
or they came out with the Disney villain deck, I was like,
Oh, I saw
hey, I
that.
really love that deck,
Yeah.
even though it's a peep deck, and
Yeah.
initially I do have an aversion for peep deck in the beginning.
Mhm.
It was like, I think you could do more for the minor arcana instead of just drawing me three swords or the three of swords.
Yeah.
But after a while, some peep decks kind of grow on you. And when this came up, I was like, yeah, I will get that because I always joke that. But Batman was interesting, well,
Yeah.
because of the villains in Batman, and also
Mhm.
the MCU universe. Some of the villains are really interesting.
Oh, they're
And
fascinating. Look at
in
Loki.
Disney,
Loki is the ultimate trickster.
Disney, the villains are interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Lion King, especially when it first opened and Scar just did that. Oh, Mufasa must die, and then he gets trampled over, right? And then that was how Simba grew up. I'm like, hey, he is actually one of my favorite villains from Disney, and the other one is actually Hunchback of Notre Dame. So I was
Oh,
very glad I was actually able to visit Notre Dame. It's like, oh, Judge Claude Frollo was really interesting when he had this song called Hellfire, and he was like,
yeah.
"Hey, don't blame me, blame God for making Esmeralda so bewitching, like, hey, okay, this is really adultish for a Disney cartoon." And then I was watching it
Yes.
when I was probably in my late teens. I was like, "Hey, Disney, you did a good one." Yeah, not everything is so pretty and things like that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
quite a theme. Yeah,
There's more layers to it. And I find that the villains are getting more and more interesting too with like you look at Mother Gothel and the psychology behind that, and the manipulation, and it's really fascinating.
mm,
The villains are often far more interesting than the innocent little ingenue or the protagonists, right?
yeah,
They've got a
correct.
really fascinating backstory and really interesting journey. And like one of my favorite, I mean, I loved all of the different series for the MCU, but the Loki um,
I love Loki.
story
It's
was fabulous.
mischief with a motive. I always call it mischief with
Yes.
a motive.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating. That's
Yeah,
really, really cool. Yeah, I haven't worked with the Disney villain deck, but it's been on my radar for a while because I love that approach. It's really
yes.
fascinating. That's really, really cool.
Mm.
So, what is your current favorite deck to work with at the moment? Or do
Okay.
you have,
Mm, probably, okay, let me reach
or,
to my back. So, this is my terribly overworked Radiant RWS. You can
nice.
see, like, every time. Okay, it's from Lost Caribous. So I kind of like always complain that the boxes for Lost Caribous is a little bit terrible because if you open it too often, and then
Yeah,
I have masking tape to it. But I love the vibrant colors for RWS actually for
yeah,
Radiant. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. Yeah, I
It's
find tech
terribly overworked.
boxes.
Yeah,
Yeah, tech boxes are challenging that way because they don't really stay together as long as like a two-part box for sure.
correct.
I
So,
actually started making some deck bags for myself. Like this is my
oh,
three
nice.
trees. Yeah, I still need to put the button on, but this is my three trees oak, ash, and thorn deck. And the tuck box that it comes in is actually beautiful, but I just find where I'm opening and closing it a lot, I worry about destroying it. So yeah, I've started making some deck bags and putting my my tuck box decks in there so that I can kind of preserve them a bit better.
I kind of like the newer decks when they have the magnetic clamps there, so that
Yeah,
no matter how much
yeah,
you open, right, it doesn't come apart.
yeah. Like I have the Pacific Northwest one here, and it's got that magnetic.
Ah,
It's really
okay.
helpful. Yeah, that's awesome. So, what are some of your favorite decks that you like working with?
Okay.
If you're anything like
Uh,
me, you probably have a few.
this would be my number one. So,
Oh,
Terra
okay.
Apocalypse. I
Oh,
like the
that's
fact that each of
awesome.
the minor arcana suits, right, is based on a culture. Like the Egyptian has the wands, and the
Oh,
Asians have the
nice.
pentacle. And I actually bought it because the guidebook is this thick,
Oh my gosh.
and it's actually
Wow.
Pandora on the cover. So Pandora is an extra card, and
Yeah.
this entire deck is like 1.2 kg. So I
Wow.
think in terms of tarot deck, it's actually they actually had tarot Illuminati. So this is the second deck they came up with, and I love gold trimming and everything. So if it's gilded
Yeah.
gold or gilded any color, right? I'm kind of sucker for gilding. Yeah,
Yeah, gilding makes such a difference. Like it's so nice when the cards are edged in a color or gilded. It's so beautiful and it just gives it a really nice texture to work with for sure.
correct.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
that would be my number one deck,
Yeah.
And then number two, definitely had to go to Ocean because
Yeah.
that
That's
was
beautiful.
my baby that I started out with. And
Yeah.
my number three would be, oops, oh no, okay, it came out. Uh, it's the Santa Morte deck, the limited
Oh,
edition.
beautiful.
So when it first came out, I actually got it for like US $60.
Hmm.
And the very next day, it actually kind of doubled, triple in price over the course of 2 days. And then by
Wow.
the time it was the third day, it was like sold out worldwide.
Wow. That's
So mine
incredible.
is a limited edition because you can actually
Yeah.
see the number here.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
The beautiful
So
box.
and they have kind of like crystals putting on the eye, so I kind of like tape it
Yeah.
so that the crystal doesn't drop out.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I kind of really connected with her when I was in Mexico. So in 2004, when I was still with uh, my first longest romantic relationship, so
Yeah.
both of us were actually in Mexico, and it
Hmm.
was the time we were kind of involved in advocacy work for HIV/AIDS. So we were there for actually the World AIDS conference, and
Hmm.
there was one morning when I had really, really terrible diarrhea. So I think that the previous night we had some falafel for dinner in one of the Mexican restaurants. So the very next day in the morning, right, it's like, okay, this is too spicy. Things are not very well. And when I was in the restroom, there's like, okay, there's this kind of this energy and this kind of lady appear, and it's like, well, I did some research and found, okay, so you are Santa Muerte, and that
Hmm.
was how I get drawn into the Mexican culture thing. And it's like, okay,
Amazing.
cool. And I love the fact that she kind of fights for the underdogs,
Hmm.
for injustice, for justice. And yeah,
Hmm.
justice is my other major arcana card that I really love a lot. And I
Yeah.
believe that, there should be equality in everything. But
Yeah.
sometimes in real world, it's kind of very difficult to achieve. So,
Yes.
justice and fairness and equality. So that sounds a bit like the good guys, but so yeah, I kind of connected with her, and this was one of the decks when it first came out. I think it was Fibro last TV, and it came out with the Oracle deck for it, and I was also very happy because if you combine the back of the Oracle decks together, right, you
Oh,
actually get
beautiful.
a Ouija board, and some of the cards can actually be linked together like Prisma Vision Tarot to form a story.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love the Prisma Vision. Like, I had a lot of fun laying out all the cards and seeing the story work through for each of the suits. It's really
Correct.
fascinating. And each
I
kind
kind
of
of love decks that does that kind, the
yeah,
storytelling. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, what an amazing experience. It's so lovely when you can connect so personally to something like that. I mean, I'm sorry that you were dealing with stomach issues at the time. That's always brutal.
Yeah, it
But
was
um,
quite. I mean, I was a counselor with them, so usually I'm the one that passed the bad news. I'm really sorry to inform you, but it's time that you might want to consider this medication options and things like that. Yeah,
mhm,
so, and I do have a lot of friends that have passed away from this epidemic, and I mean, I'm glad that in Singapore we are getting more help from the government and things like that for this condition, and I think there's more awareness of it compared to like in the 1980s or 90s when it exploded and nobody knows. So in a way, when COVID came, right, this was like the 2020 versions of HIV,
oh,
and
absolutely.
yeah. So it kind of reminds me of that period, lah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was a silent pandemic, epidemic. And there was so much stigma around it. And I think things have really opened up as they should. And there's more support available, which is so important. Actually, here in Canada, they've just adjusted the um, rules and regulations about giving blood. So there's no restriction. They've lifted the restrictions on that, which is, I think, really good. And there's been a lot of people advocating for it for a really long time. So there's shifts that are happening, which brings me
Which is
hope.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
positive direction. Yeah. So
yes.
what are your favorite decks? Okay, I've shared my top three. Yeah.
I have a pile of like 10 here. I have a really hard time picking a favorite because like I have a rather large collection now and I find like each of them I love for a different reason and
Yeah.
I feel
And we have
bad.
different phases also when we are collecting, right? I always
Yeah,
joke that I need more space in the room behind. So there's like more than 550 decks. Like, how did I manage to squeeze them? But I need more space because more decks are actually cluttered.
yeah.
I call
I've
that
gone
my
over
addiction.
Yeah, I've got over 100 now, I think. But I haven't stopped and counted them recently. It all still fits on the shelf, sort of. So that's good. Um, and I also feel bad because I've gotten to know so many amazing creators in the tarot community, and I feel like by prioritizing one deck, I'm like taking away from another one. But I did pull out some of my favorites. I just kind of went instinctually and just kind of grabbed. But one of my all-time favorites is the Pacific Northwest Tarot by Brendan Marnell.
I love the box design.
What's that?
I love the box design. It's
Oh,
very
it's
colorful,
incredible.
it's very floral.
And he's based his artwork on the Pacific Northwest, which is one of my favorite parts of the world. I've lived on Vancouver Island a few times, and again with the snake imagery, it's helpful.
Yeah.
But I just love like the images are it hits me right here, you know. I feel such a connection, and I feel like I'm a strong believer that tarot should be for everyone, and everyone should be able to see themselves represented in a deck. And so I find myself often gravitating towards nature decks because to me it feels like it's a neutral base to work from, and it gives you a perspective that can be really helpful. And I think a lot of people find peace and solace in nature as well. I'm just looking for, oh yeah, this is the Hermit card. I love it. This big
Oh, so
brown bear.
cute. It's like the brown bear from.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just looking for the Fool card because it's absolutely fantastic in this deck, and I know how much you enjoy that one. Oh yeah, and Queen of Swords is incredible
Oh,
as well.
nice.
Owl. It's an incredible, incredible deck. I don't know about you, but there's certain decks that I see and it just kind of gets me, you know, like I feel like I'm responding to it on a really visceral level. So yeah, the Fool is just incredible. I love
Oh, the sea
his
otter.
sea otter. Yeah, otters are some of my favorite animals. I find them, I don't know, I feel like I lost touch with my sense of play somewhere along the way, and so I've really been trying to reclaim that for myself and that beginner's mindset and being open to new experiences. And so I love that this is an otter because I feel such a connection to that particular animal and this particular card. And it was interesting because I've been looking at the relative tarot and I worked out my numerology, and I have the Emperor as my birth card, and then it's also associated with the Death card and the Fool,
Yeah.
numerologically speaking. And it makes so much sense when I look back over my life and the different patterns and things. And I also have a Scorpio moon, and so looking at that cycle of death and rebirth, that's been a big process for me over the course of my life. So it's been really interesting looking at that. Um, and then the Oak, Ash, and Thorn, again, it's a nature deck. It's absolutely stunning. The images are just beautiful. Um, yeah, the Hierophant in this is really lovely. It's got a very fall vibe. I like using this one in the autumn because of all the trees coming down off the leaves coming down off the trees rather. And they just released a really beautiful dragon deck as well, which is really lovely to work with. Um, I think I saw you posting with this one on your feed as well. The Starseeker Tarot.
Yes, yeah. I have the
Yeah,
pocket edition, the mini ones, because my
nice.
hands aren't really that big, so I have issues
Yeah,
with cards that are too big. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's lovely. I just love the images, like this Eight of Wands. Like Nikki's art style is just phenomenal. I don't know. This is another one where the imagery really speaks to me. Like this Three of Wands is really gorgeous as well. Um, yeah, I don't need to go through all of them. There's quite a few here, but have you worked with the True Black Tarot?
No, I don't have the true black tarot, but I have something else called La Ex Umbra. So that's
Oh yeah,
actually from
I've seen
France.
that one. It's
And
beautiful. Similar feel.
yeah, something very similar in art style to this one.
Yeah.
And I usually will pair that with Threads of Fate Oracle.
Yes, Threads of Fate. It's beautiful together. This is the Queen of Swords. I just love
Yeah,
these images because they feel like marble statues from a museum. Do you know what I mean? Like with the
yeah, it's
effect.
like from the Louvre, right? They just steal the statue out. Yeah, I think there's one card in True Black that I like. I think it's a devil card because he was doing this, keep quiet or something like that, silence.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the Hermit. I'll see if I can find the Devil. I don't have these ones in order. Usually I put decks in order before I.
Me too, me too. After reading, I will go back home. Okay, I need to cleanse the deck. I need to count like the 78 cards are still there because there were once when I came back from a reading, it's like hey, I'm missing 4 cards. Where
Oh
has my
no.
4 cards gone missing? And I do like to arrange them in order and all upright. So if I do get
Yeah.
the reverse in the reading, I was like, okay, this is interesting. I do
Yeah.
believe in jumper cards and also the stalker
Yeah.
cards. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I need things to be upright at all times. Like I do look at the reverse meaning of a card if it fits within the context of a reading
Yeah.
for me, but I like having all my cards upright. There's something about the order of that makes
Oh
sense
yeah,
to
I
me.
always joke that I do have an OCD because I'm Virgo Sun, I'm Taurus Moon, and my ascending is actually Capricorn. So it's
Oh,
all Earth
okay.
signs. Yeah, but if I go by Bazi or Chinese mysticism, I'm actually fire. So I actually love working with fire and earth. So there was a time when I was actually very in my modern phase. So like okay, I don't want all the more olden style of RWS, but I kind of connected in that phase. I started with Light Seer. So I think a lot
Mhm,
of readers love Light Seer. And
mhm.
this was the deck that I connected second with, but which I actually love a lot, Urban Tarot. So it's actually based a lot on the New York
Oh, I
City.
love that one. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
And
great
I,
deck.
I do have, I normally don't like the devil card. I'm not like as in, most of the devil card is, the depiction doesn't really call out to me. But in this deck, right, the devil card is really amazing. Okay, like you
Yeah,
can see.
it is. Here's the devil from True Black. And yeah, like you're saying, it's like shh.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I have Death. So Death was actually one of my favorite card. It's like the
Oh, it's
surgeon, but
amazing.
without the face.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think this is Ten of Wands. So I like that. It's like orange is a new black. Is it orange is a
Yes.
new black? Yeah, yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. Okay, let me
Yeah.
find where's the devil.
I love that that deck is a slice of life too. It's like something that is very tangible and accessible. Like the original Rider-Waite-Smith is amazing, but it's set so far in the past that I don't know. I find sometimes when I can find decks like the Urban Tarot that is a slice of life, or the next World Tarot, for example, it feels like it's a
that was
representation.
on my wish list, and I kind of forgotten that it was on my wish list. Yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of like Night of
I have
Wands
to
because it reminds me of Coldplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I have the pocket edition of the Next World Tarot and I find it's great because it's really easy to shuffle. Like the full-size version is really, really big. And I do have long fingers, but I find it's a bit cumbersome for shuffling. So I really enjoy yeah, the smaller format is nice. Yeah.
Same here. I don't have really big hands, so I kind of struggle if the cards are too
Yeah.
big or
Yeah, yeah,
irregular
for sure.
size cards. Like
Yeah.
I do have a oracle deck called Heart and Soul, so it's actually heart shaped. So it's
Oh
like
my gosh.
okay, it's hard to shuffle when it's heart shaped or when it's circular, right? So this
Yeah.
is actually my favorite, one of my favorite devil card,
Oh, it's
and
amazing.
if okay, so it's actually you can so for the devil's card, right, usually there's the two handcuff at the bottom and chain to the
Mhm.
humans. So you can
Yeah.
actually see the handcuff at the floor here.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you go to the graffiti on top, right, you actually notice the devil
Yeah.
horns on him.
Yeah.
And it's like he's in the public
Absolutely.
toilet smoking a joint. So it's like,
Yep.
hey, that's a cool devil. Yeah.
Yep. It reminds me a little bit in the vibe of the Lightseer's Tarot and the devil in that one, where he's like
Yeah.
summoning you. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
correct.
got a similar look with the long hair and everything. Yeah,
I call that
that's
the rock
really
star vibe. The rock
yes,
star vibe.
100% rock star vibe. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Um, yeah, that's really really cool. Another deck that I absolutely love is the Fifth Spirit deck. Have you worked with this one?
I think it's somewhere around. It's somewhere around on my shelf in the left side. When I'm in that magic mode, I guess I'll combine that up.
Yeah. One of my favorite cards from this deck is the King of Cups. Well, I love the Empress and the Emperor card too. Working with the Emperor really helped me rehabilitate my relationship with that card because I really struggle with it. It's my birth card, but there's so much of manipulation and control and dogma associated with that I had personally associated with that card that I had to kind of unpack and rework for myself. So I love that this is a new and fresh perspective and way of looking at the emperor in a way that's very open and inclusive and less um, patriarchally
Less
focused.
less uh less less patronizing, less what you call
Yes, Yes, absolutely. But I loved Mr. Rogers as a kid, so when I saw this King of Cups, I was just, oh, I love it so much. And this guidebook for the Fifth Spirit Tarot is, I adore everything that Charlie Claire Burgess creates. They are so talented, and their writing in that guidebook just blows my mind every time I look at it. It's such an incredible perspective on tarot, and it's open and it's inclusive in a way that I haven't found in a lot of um, perspectives on tarot. There's more and more all the time. Like I have Querying the Tarot. It's really great. It's an open, expansive perspective. But yeah, like Charlie Claire had said something about the Emperor, benevolent stewardship, and reading those words completely shifted my perspective on that card because it makes so much sense to me. And that's like the most elevated, enlightened version of the Emperor, right? It's
Yes,
like,
usually people kind of think of emperor, throughout history or tradition, right? It's a tyrant
mhm,
and a despot. But I
yeah,
guess, sometimes there are benevolent emperors around, just that it's
yeah.
not much in history. But I always joke that history is written by the people who win. The losers don't write the history, right? Yeah,
Oh,
and I kind of
absolutely.
love that deck of yours because it goes well with Botanical Inspiration. So
Oh,
I love
amazing.
poetry and I love literature, and it's
Oh,
a very
gorgeous.
flora deck with like quotes and things like that.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, flower decks are so incredible. I've been working with Carrie from Bouchette Design Shop had sent me a prototype version of the Meraki Tarot, and I adore this deck.
Oh,
Again,
that was a very nice card that you just pick up, that one.
yeah, I love this one. It reminds me, you see the lake through the trees, and just it reminds me of again, it's grounded in the Pacific Northwest, like the Pacific Northwest Tarot, and there's something about that part of the world that just I love this Hermit card as well.
Oh yes,
I have
yes, I do love that.
first edition too. But yeah, I don't know, the images, I love this Nine of Pentacles with the fox. It's just yeah, I don't know. There's just something about this. But again, there's flower imagery that shows up in this deck along with the animals and the natural landscape, and there's something so beautiful about that. So the deck that you were showing me with the flowers, what was the name of that one?
Botanical Inspiration is by
Oh,
Arlene
gorgeous.
Araujo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were mentioning that you love animal decks and you're very into the autumn kind of deck. So I guess you probably have the Hush Tarot.
I don't, that's one that's been on my list for a while, and I actually don't have it yet, which is crazy. It's interesting because I actually struggle with fall. Since I was a kid, I find my spirits get really low in the fall when all the leaves are falling, and I was bullied for about 10 years through school. So the association with fall is always going back to school, going back into that kind of challenging environment. But much like the snakes imagery that I've been working with, I find that the Oak Ash and Thorn has been helping me kind of rehabilitate my relationship with that time of year and lean into it. And the more I lean into magical practices and the wheel of the year and shifting with the seasons and adopting different practices at different times of the year, the more I feel at ease at all times, not just in spring and summer when I feel most alive. You know, it's really interesting. Do you have a favorite season or a season that you struggle with?
Well, I mean, in Singapore it's always hot and wet, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, if I were actually in a temperate country, I would actually love autumn and winter because Samhain is actually my favorite holiday.
Oh,
If
it's fabulous. It's
Yeah,
mine as well.
I
I
love
adore it.
dressing up as ghosts to
Yeah,
scare people. I mean,
yeah.
we kind of have that in Singapore when there used to be Halloween horror nights in Sentosa. So there was one year I was actually two years but in different location. One was in RWS, which is kind of
Mhm.
like our Disneyland, and
Oh my gosh.
the other one was in Fort Siloso. So in Fort Siloso, I was dressed up as a clown,
Oh my gosh.
and I don't like clowns personally. Like I get kind
You
of
scared me.
scared of clowns.
Yeah.
That was I blame that on Stephen King. When it came out, I was like 8 years
Yes.
old, and it really
Terrifying.
traumatized me when I was young.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
do have the Divine Circus Oracle, and that's all clowns. Yeah, and so the other one, when in RWS, I was actually thrown into a dark room, solitary confinement, and I was pretend to be a deranged prisoner. So a bit
Wow.
like the pre-shadow of Joker before he
Yeah.
went mad. Oh, okay, he actually went mad before he was in prison, but yeah. So I was like running around. I had three different exits to scare people. so I can run
Oh my
around.
gosh.
And it was quite fun actually. I was in total darkness,
Oh
and
my god.
they were just blaring like people laughing, and then I'll just come out of it. I just start crying or start laughing, so that was kind of fun. So Halloween or Samhain is actually my favorite season, followed by Christmas. You know, Christmas,
Oh,
all the
it's
snow and
fabulous.
everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely love to visit you in Nova Scotia. You know, when we get a
Oh,
chance to
it's
travel there, and
the
it
fall.
would
It's
definitely be
beautiful.
winter because I was in London that time, but the snow didn't fall. So maybe
Mm.
somewhere where there's snow, you know, I can run around, do the snow
Yeah.
angel thing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we get lots of, well, we got lots of snow this year. It usually starts in January full on. We get some in December, but yeah, no, fall, I was just talking to my husband about this, that fall is kind of the best season here in Nova Scotia because it's sunny and it's warm and
And you get all the colors of
you get all the colors. Like growing up in Alberta, I grew up in Calgary, it was all yellow in the fall. Like there wasn't the rich reds and oranges and yellows, like the
and the
mix of
brown.
colors you get here. It's really, really beautiful. Yeah. Oh, interesting to know. I don't connect with animal and plant decks. I know a lot of people actually who don't, which is really interesting. I think it really depends on the person and their perspective, and sometimes the seeing visual representation of a human is really helpful with drawing meaning, especially with RWS. Um, have you worked with any of Grounded by the Moon's decks? Joseph has the Practical Magic inspired Oracle, like the Inner Witch Oracle and the Inner Witch Tarot. And I prototype
No,
his
no.
his Inner Witch Tarot is currently on Kickstarter, and it's all inspired, like it's more loosely inspired by Practical Magic than the Oracle deck. But this is the Tower, and it's the Rose Bush,
Oh,
and
nice.
I love that the Wheel
The
of the
moon.
Year is cycles.
Uh,
Um, this Emperor card is one of my favorites. I just
oh,
love that
it's
imagery
very
so much.
shamanist.
Yeah. So it's been fun, and it's this particular deck is grounded in witchcraft and practices, and there's little hints and elements of practical magic, which I really enjoy. I adore that movie. I have for a really, really long time. I read the book, and I was so fascinated to see how different it is. And I'm a lifelong bookworm, and usually when the movie's different from the book, it really bothers me. But in this case, they're almost like two separate things, and I really love both of them for different reasons. So it's
Mm.
really interesting. But yeah, I love it because it reminds me of Halloween and Samhain and all of the dressing up and the magic and the practices and everything.
And
And
the
it's really,
candies. And the candies.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, that's really, really cool.
I
Yeah.
think if I were to say my favorite movie or things related, because I love musicals, I love songs.
Yeah,
So
me too.
Wicked occupies my top spot for musicals, other than Les Miserables. I love the fact that it gives a different view that, you know, hey, Elphaba is not really that bad. She has the
Yeah.
backstory,
Oh
and you
my
know, like,
gosh. Yes.
and I love the song For Good where you know Idina Menzel was doing with Christine Chenoweth, right? And
Yeah.
when Christine was actually on Glee, that episode was actually fun. I
Yeah.
loved my old Buffy, and I can't remember what was her name. And I love Charm in the older days. And there's
Yeah.
this very lesser known. Okay, just give me a moment.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. I have a background in theater and in theater and musical theater. I trained in that university and at theater school in New York, and I was obsessed with Les Miserables from the age of about 8 on. And yeah, when the film came out, I was so excited and amazing. And Wicked is such a great musical. My kids are really into it. Oh my
I got
gosh!
all the three books. So it's Wicked, and then a
Yeah.
Son of a Witch, and something about the
Yes.
lion here. This is
Yeah.
actually my
Yeah.
favorite witchcraft movie, Beautiful Creatures.
Oh, amazing. I haven't actually seen that. I need to look into it.
Yeah, so it's
Um,
very New Orleans and very
yeah,
the Bayou kind of like the you know the voodoo kind of magic.
yeah.
And I always kind of I mean the New Orleans is actually one of it's my top place that I want to visit in the
Oh,
world.
yeah. We did 20 months of full-time RV travel with our kids and went through New Orleans as part of our travels. And it was absolutely fascinating. We loved our time there. We went to the French Quarter and found Anne Rice's house and like did all of these different things, and
Okay,
it was a
that's
really
nice.
magical part of the
I
world.
would dream interview with a vampire, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, and
I
that
was
person
obsessed
done
with
when she
that
was
book
young.
when it came
The
out in the
scene
movie,
when
and
they
like
tried to
yeah,
cut her hair,
yeah,
that really left a mark. And then when her hair grew back and she got very angry, it's like, okay, New Orleans is actually on my mark. So if someone designs a deck that's very New Orleans based, whether it's a tarot oracle, yeah, okay, I'll be
yeah,
buying. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's something about that part of the world that is so magical. I think someone just had a question about the Mary Elle Tarot. They were wondering, they were thinking about getting a copy, but not sure if it was hard to work with. That's one that I actually haven't worked with yet. I've heard about it a lot, I've seen it a lot, but I haven't worked with it. So I'd love to
Uh,
get your perspective if you have it and have worked with it. And
I do not have Mary Elf Tarot actually. I
mhm.
think a lot I wouldn't consider it a basic deck. It's probably something more intermediate.
Yeah,
Uh, you need to at least know your basic meanings. I mean, for
yeah,
me, I don't like to memorize things, so I love decks where there's a lot of picture, like this,
mhm.
where I can actually chain the
Yeah,
cards up, or whether is it
yeah,
mixing it with tarot or oracle, or
yeah,
mixing tarot oracle with Lenormand and Keeper. So like you mentioned, right, you're deep diving into Lenormand. I'm actually doing Lenormand and Keeper and tarot and oracle combined. So
oh,
I love
amazing. Yeah,
Lenormand for the fact that it's very good for relationship reading.
yes. It's more of
Yeah,
a direct
it's
answer than tarot. Like I find with Lenormand, it's more of a yes or no or directive. Like it's
yeah,
very
or
to the point, which is really interesting because with
correct.
tarot, like sometimes I'll ask a question like, what do I need to do to move forward? And I'll pull a card from the tarot and it's like, move forward. It's like a chariot. I'm like, okay, but it's not giving me the how, right?
Yeah,
So,
like I move
um,
forward, but usually I like, okay, I need to move forward, but can you please tell me where's my blind spot? Because
yes.
moving forward, but
Yeah.
dropping into a pit hole, right? It doesn't help moving forward, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
need still need
Yeah.
some time to crawl out of that. So yeah, moving
Absolutely.
forward, but tell me where's my blind spot so that I don't bash into a tree or walk into a line post while
Yeah.
swiping left on my phone, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love that so much. Um, Another deck I wanted to mention, I don't know if you have this one or not. It's by Mari in the Sky and it's a gentle tarot. Um, I just love the images. Again, there's a lot of nature imagery. Like I said, I tend to gravitate towards that.
Mm.
But there are some human images as well, like the Seven of Wands.
Oh, just very Native American,
Yes,
right?
yes. She's First Nations, and there's a lot of inspiration for that. And then there's the devil, and I love that they're pulling the chain, but the chain is released and they're free from it.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the imagery of this deck. The Nine of Thunder, that whole idea of getting stuck in your thoughts, like thunder is swords. Um, yeah, no, it's really, I
It's very
find,
similar artwork to Sherilyn Darcy. I think she's from Australia side. She does a
oh,
lot of the wildflower and all the very shamanistic deck, animal
yeah,
related deck, the flower deck from Australia side. I think it's
yeah,
Rockpool Publishing if I'm not wrong. Yeah,
oh,
I
amazing.
love the decks from Rockpool actually. So I mean, I'm a I love Lucy's Cavendish deck and I love Stacy DeMarco's deck. So
Mhm.
yeah, and also Ina Segal. I think Ina Segal is more US side. So she has this color deck called Sacred Language of Colors. So that was actually my
Ooh.
working oracle deck.
Oh, amazing. That would be, yeah,
And
color theory is amazing.
I actually do a lot of like energy healing and color therapy. So that's
Yeah.
like my go-to deck for color therapy actually.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, there's,
And yeah, I guess I cannot run away talking about tarot, right? Without talking about Mr. Zero, right? It's like everybody, I don't know, everybody kind of has his deck. I know Rowan is a fan of his artwork. I'm a fan of his artwork, and this is
yeah.
actually my first oracle card
Oh,
that's my working oracle card that I usually start off with paired off with my Radiant RWS, and
yeah.
like we did share, right? We love stories and we love fairy tales. So there's Little Mermaid Ariel in this deck,
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
and let me find my favorite card. So just give me a
Yeah.
moment. Okay.
I just
We
recently got the Witches of Legend.
I think I have that somewhere around.
Yeah,
This is
it's
Pinocchio.
really like it because it looks at different goddesses and myths, and the artwork is just beautiful. But I love that Little Mermaid Ariel
And
card. That's
this is
absolutely
actually my
stunning.
favorite card. So it's
Oh,
Little Red
amazing.
Riding Hood.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful. The
I always
artwork is
joke that,
stunning.
the witches in the fairy tale, they are not really that bad, right? So,
Yeah.
and I kind of love, I think they did like a reboot of Hansel and Gretel, and then
Hmm.
they turn it into witch hunters. I can't remember which
Hmm.
movie was
Yes,
that.
I
That
remember
was
that.
that was quite refreshing actually. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my kids are really into revisionist, like in terms of shifting the perspective to the villain's perspective. Like they love Wicked from that perspective. They loved Maleficent for that perspective. Like there's more and more films that are starting to look at things from the villain's perspective, and it makes things
I
really
love Shrek.
interesting.
Shrek was amazing.
Oh my gosh, Shrek is one
Especially
of
the
our
first episode,
favorites.
first episode when Fiona tried to sing, right? And then the
Yes,
bird tried to outsing her, and then the bird just talked, and then she's like, "Okay, let's take
yes.
a pen and let's do omelette." That was
Oh my
really
gosh.
very classic, like you won't
Yes,
find a Disney princess doing that. Like imagine like Snow White doing that, and everybody was like, "Hey, that's
yes.
not Snow White," yeah. But
And
it works.
I love that she stays an ogre in the end too, right? Like that's so fantastic. And we're obsessed with the Shrek the musical as well. It's so good. Like the music, like Let Your Freak Flag Fly and like all of it is just awesome. It's such an affirming message to be who you are, and that to me is so powerful.
And that I guess is also important part about in a reading. I mean, I find, right,
Yeah,
you don't really give bad news to people, but I guess I work from the fact that even though it might be bad, but we have the ability, if we know
yes,
that something bad is coming and we don't like it, it gives
yeah,
us the insight to change. There's always
yeah,
that free will
absolutely.
and that hope that even though we might be in the dark night of the soul, where
Yeah,
there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just that
yeah,
we need to work to get to it. So I always joke that
yes,
if there was a card that could have been used for my dark night also, I probably joke that it's a 12 of swords. But then
yeah,
getting the 10 of swords is good because it means to me that I can't drop down any further.
yes,
That's
absolutely.
like really rock bottom.
Yep,
Once you're there, the only way you can do is to go up.
yeah,
And that way, to me, right, there's really no bad card like what you mentioned, right?
no,
Tower is like, actually I need to tear down my foundations because my
mhm,
foundations were rocky in the first place, and
yep,
death is because maybe I have an addictive old habit that I need to get rid of because
yeah,
it's blocking the way of future abundance or future
yeah,
opportunities coming. Yeah, and I love Hermit. Well, I mean, part of I guess part of me is also empathic, so I kind of rely on, other than the storytelling and seeing the picture on the cards, I kind of also feel the people that I'm reading for, and sometimes do have a backstory, and when they share the
yeah,
backstory, it kind of tugs your heart. So there was a
yes,
moment in time when I was actually doing a lot of readings related to divorce,
yes,
and I have some of them were actually my friends or my fellow classmates from a digital
yeah,
marketing course. So I was like, oh, the guys are really mean to their wives, and they have no choice but to actually end that kind of abusive relationship pattern.
mhm,
So yeah, it was draining, but it was very touching that even though things might get tough, but we need to decide to move on, and how do
mhm,
we move on from there? And that's where the reading comes in to give that insight that
yeah,
even after the 10 of swords, there's always a ace of cups.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, again, those are the cards that I dreaded when I first started tarot because I kind of bought into the stereotypical perceptions of tarot that you see in TV shows or movies, like death card, someone's gonna die, and it's not about that, right? I mean, it's about release and evolution and growth and healing. And those are such powerful things to work with, such powerful energies to work with. And sometimes releasing things is difficult, but in my experience, it's always necessary. And so, like with the Tower card showing up, that gives me a heads up that there's something that I need to work through and work on. Or I feel like sometimes the universe has the tendency to do it for you if you don't do it for yourself. So getting that heads up can be really helpful in
Correct.
managing in a
Either
way
that
that
or they keep
you
giving you the repeated haunter cards or stalker cards, right? Like, hey, you
yeah,
need to watch out, a hermit,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And I've come to actually really appreciate the Three of Swords, the Nine of Swords, the Ten of Swords. Like you said, with the Ten of Swords, you're at rock bottom, so there's nowhere to go but up. And there's something so empowering about that and so hopeful about that. Like, and also the acknowledgement that, yeah, things are really difficult right now. Like, I find for myself personally, sometimes I need that acknowledgement. No, it's not just in your head. Things are tough, right? And then once you acknowledge that for yourself, then you can start the healing process. But if you hide that away and you don't acknowledge that things are difficult or you downplay your experience, then that takes away from that healing component, right? And with the
Correct.
Three of
Like
Swords,
we aren't
again,
really
like,
living in a perfect world kind of thing. Like yes, the
mm-hmm,
world is imperfect. Though we will always have changes and
yep,
unexpected things coming up. So
yep,
we need to be able to handle things on the fly, and that is
yep,
actually something that tarot have taught me. You know, being Virgo Sun and Taurus Moon, you know, everything has to be perfect. Then I will take
yeah,
action. Yeah, that
yeah,
that that will probably be the old me and the very scientist because for me I come from a background of computer and IT. So you know
yep,
everything has to be logical. It's either one
yep,
or zero. There's no
yep,
binary. It has to be a binary. It's non-binary will freak me out. But you know,
yeah.
tarot kind of gives that spectrum that hey, there's no perfect villain and no perfect hero.
Yeah,
Everybody shifts in between. Yeah.
it's all the gray area in between that is where all the magic happens, right? It's
And that's where the beauty of life is, right? That in
yeah,
between that shades of
yeah.
gray. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, that Three of Swords, like I used to dread it. And now when it shows up, I'm like, okay, there's something I need to sort through here. There's some pain that I'm not facing up to, or there's some pain that I need to acknowledge, that I need to work through in order to free myself and open up space and stop being so restricted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm a Gemini sun, Libra rising, and Scorpio moon. And before I looked at my birth chart, I was like, oh, Scorpio energy, that's so intense. And then I looked at my birth chart and I'm like, oh, that's one of my big three. And now it's actually my favorite placement. And it explains so much about why I'm drawn to the esoteric and why I've gone
Yeah.
through this continual cycle of death and rebirth. And it associates with the death card that's connected to my birth card as well, which is so it's so fascinating when you start exploring these things, and it's a way to kind of
It's like very enlightening. Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's a way to
think
make
I
sense of
have
your
that
experience.
somewhere in my house. I think in Pluto. So
Yeah.
Scorpio is somewhere in Pluto. So these two,
Hmm.
when it comes together, right, it's all about rebirth, death, and
Yeah.
karma and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess to me, like a lot of people say, karma is because you do good things you get reward, you do bad things you get punishment. But I mean, for me, I come from the fact that it is cause and effect. So
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
always believe when I see the Death card or when I see the Tower card or even when I see the Seven of Pentacles, to
Hmm.
me that's we reap what we sow. You can't possibly plant orange seeds and you get apple trees. Like the apple
Yeah.
pie don't come from oranges, you know. Yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's why I feel so drawn to the Justice card because there's that sense of karma and cause and effect and fairness and equality. Like I think it's maybe part of that Libra rising, but for me, it's all about fairness, right? And what is just, what is fair, and anything that deviates from that just bothers me so much, you know, like it's
yep.
like it's not fair. So it's interesting when you look at astrology and juxtapose it on your understanding of yourself, and then you start incorporating some of the archetypes of tarot can expand your understanding in such beautiful ways. It's really quite fascinating. So one of the practices that you mentioned that you incorporate is Bazi. That's not something I'm familiar with, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Again, sorry, Juice. The last part kind of
Oh,
missed the
yeah.
last word. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just, when you mentioned the practices that you use, magic and mediumship, numerology, astrology, energy healing, there was another one, Bazi. I'm not familiar with that. Maybe I'm not pronouncing it properly. Bazi?
Oh, 八字. Oh, okay, that's kind of like Eastern mysticism. I call that like Eastern way of looking at astrology.
Okay.
So that would be like your element. In a way, it's also look at your elements, but in Chinese 八字, right? We work more with in Chinese we call it 金木水火土, meaning metal, wood,
Mhm. Yep.
fire, earth,
Yep.
and water. So
Hmm.
in Western magic, it's more of like air, fire, earth, and water. Yeah.
Hmm.
So in Chinese, it's more of the five elements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really,
And you have your like your year element, your day element, your hour element, and your minute element. So it changes
nice.
every year. So in a way, it's like numerology when you talk about personal year. And that to
Yes.
me is actually the more important part. Like I mentioned in the start, right? I can't
Hmm.
change my life path. Life path is like that. Okay,
Yeah.
but I always believe that, just because I'm a Virgo sun doesn't mean that, I'm critical and I'm
Yeah.
bitchy and everything has to be.
Yeah.
I'm a bloody perfectionist.
Yeah.
Okay, I probably have Gemini and Capricorn somewhere, so I'm okay. I'm okay to get it a little bit messy, a little bit
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yeah.
Okay, but life doesn't always have to go from A to Z in a straight path.
Yeah.
Life usually
Yeah.
will throw you a curveball somewhere. If you expect A
Yeah.
to Z, right, you will definitely get a curveball somewhere. And,
Yeah.
and, and for me, part of the Virgo sun thing is like, oh, life is too good. Okay, when is the next crap shit, or I call that the
Yeah.
shit storm coming, right? Okay,
Yeah.
then I will
Yeah.
go and pick my tarot deck and like, okay, tell me what's my blind spot that's going to come. At least I'm prepared for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's fascinating looking at astrology too, because I used to always just look at my Gemini sun, and there's so many things about Gemini that don't resonate for me. There's a lot of things that do. I have my Mercury and Sun in Gemini, and that whole kind of curiosity, wanting to explore, wanting to learn constantly, that's very much a part of me. But then there's other aspects, like I'm very true blue, I'm very loyal, which is not associated with Gemini particularly. And
Yeah, people usually tend to think Geminis are flighty and
yeah, and
and,
flaky.
and
I don't tend to be. But it was really interesting looking at my birth chart and looking at it as a whole, because I actually relate more to my Libra rising and especially my Scorpio moon. So when you look at those three components together, it explains so much. And even looking at, like, I have my Saturn in Virgo and I also have my North Node in Virgo in my 12th house. And it's so interesting because I'm hyper organized, but I'm
and
also,
hyperlogical.
yeah, I'm hyper organized but messy. And I've always felt like I'm a walking contradiction because of those two things. I'm like, how can this coexist in one space? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the Gemini sun
I
and
would say
Libra
that it's
rising.
organized chaos because I
Yeah.
know where my things are, although it
Oh
looks
yeah.
chaotic and messy, right?
Oh yeah. And I can't seem to, like, my partner Dominic is very organized and he's very like methodical with things, which is great. And I'm very organized, but I don't have that tidy component that he does, right? Like, it is just so interesting to look at different things and how it works
Yeah.
together. I think looking at things holistically and incorporating different elements is such a beautiful way to approach a practice, because it's so much more expansive that way. It's so much more kind of open. If you only look at one aspect, then I feel like it restricts you from exploring so many different elements, right? And maybe it's that innate curiosity, but I always want to learn more about different things and see if I can expand my understanding. And so, speaking of, do you have any favorite tarot books that you like working with, or astrology books, or esoteric in any?
I do. So, okay, look, I have the Psychic Tarot.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it kind of talks about blending intuition together
Mm-hmm.
with psychic awareness and intuition together.
Nice.
And I think Tarot Companion, that was what I started with because for me, I hate memorizing meanings, and that is actually my go-to book. If I need to like forget my meanings, okay. But I was learning, I think my issue a lot. I have a lot of issue with chord cards because I couldn't
Okay.
relate to them. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
they were the last group of people that I kind of relate to. So it was I started with the majors because that's easy to remember, and then the
Yeah.
minors, right? And then like chord cards, they don't resonate for me. So I mean, the only one I found resonance with was actually the Knight of Cups. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the tarot companion actually helps a lot because I like the fact that it actually mentions that for in a reading, right, if you get like two queens, three
Mm-hmm.
queens or four queens, or two kings and three queens and four kings, right, there's
Mm-hmm.
actually additional meaning. Like if you talk about two knights, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like a brotherhood of knights. But
Yeah.
if you have two kings together, it's actually rivalry instead of brotherhood.
Interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Yeah.
So we
I,
have a lot of like the numerology in the minor arcanas, but
Mhm.
working with the chord cards, there's always like if multiple cards of the same thing come together. So there was actually one reading that was very interesting for me. I have the
Mhm.
four of everything.
Oh,
That means the
wow.
four of wands, the four of
Yeah.
pentacles, the four of cups, and the four of sword. And
Yeah.
then the major arcana card was the fourth card, which is the emperor, right? Emperor?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the empress. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's
I
so
was like,
interesting.
okay. And there was actually one spread that I have, right? That I think maybe within the last 1 month that I usually will post daily spread. And
Yeah.
for that spread, right, I have all the court cards. So I have the Page of Pentacle, the Queen of Cups, the King
Yeah.
of Swords, but I'm missing the Knight.
Oh, interesting.
And that's
That's
like, okay, I
fascinating.
have everybody else, but the Knight is missing and one element is missing. So I actually kind
Wow.
of focus on that element and that missing
Yeah.
Knight. Because the rest came out, but which is the one missing. So that's like, hey, blind spot, blind
Yeah.
spot. What is the message that the blind spot is trying to say? And for
I
me,
love
I
that.
love songs, I love music, I love
Yeah.
musicals. So I try to actually bring that into my daily read also. So if I
Oh,
can
I love
find a
that.
relevant song to tie it with the message of
Yeah.
the message of the day, right? I will try to put that in also. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I struggled
I
with
kind of
court.
started memorizing my cards actually based on songs. So
Yeah.
like well, I think Celine Dion when she had the Titanic song. So I
Yes.
think that was my Five of Cups.
Yep, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that association because it
Yeah,
makes it more personal, right? It makes it
yeah,
intimate to you. And the meaning is associated with the song. And so it pulls out the feeling. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, music always triggers feeling and emotion in me in different ways. And so it's a really helpful tool to associate with different things. I struggled with court cards as well. I think because when I looked at the traditional meaning of, okay, well, if it's a knight, then it's going to be this kind of person. And if it's a queen, then it's going to be this kind of person. And it was so focused on someone external to you that was like incorporated in your life. And that can be a way of looking at it, but I find it really useful to look at the court cards as an aspect of yourself. Because so often when they show up in a reading, it's like that Knight of Pentacle energy. Okay, well, I need to take a slow and steady, measured approach. I don't need to force myself out of the gate. If I get the Queen of Swords, okay, I need to work on my boundaries. I need to work on open, honest communication. And now that I see aspects of myself in all 16 of the court cards, I have so much more of an intimate relationship with them. And they can still absolutely mean someone external to me, but it's like a way of looking at how that energy is playing out in my life. And that has actually really opened up my relationship with those cards because I really struggled for a long time, especially when you get into the nitty gritties of, well, it's a dark haired person with this kind of complexion or whatever, really traditional meanings. And it just didn't stick for me, right? But
correct.
and that's where tarot is so magical, is you can find a way of finding meaning in the cards that maybe is different from a traditional approach. But if it resonates for you, then it works, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so many different
I would say
systems.
tarot is like the onion. You peel one layer off, right? There's
Yes,
another layer to explore, right?
yes. Oh my goodness, absolutely. Just like donkeys in Shrek.
Yeah. Or like I mean, I love Alice in Wonderland, so I have it in the Oracle version and in the Tarot version, and
Yeah,
always the more you go down the rabbit hole, the more things that you discover, right? Yeah.
yes. Oh my goodness. I was such an expert when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. I had it all figured out. And the older I get, the more I realize I don't know. Like, it's so funny how, when you're younger and you don't have that understanding, you think you have a mastery of something. And then as you get older and your perspective shifts, you realize how much more there is to learn, right? It's really fascinating.
And that would be the tower, right? It's like every time
Yes.
you build your foundation, like, hey, I'm at the top of the building. Oh no, it's time to come down again.
Time to
Yeah.
come down again and start that whole process over again. Yeah, and that's the magic with the world card and the fool card. It's like those cycles and those journeys and the culmination of one thing and moving into something else. Because I kept getting the world card earlier on this year too, and it was at a real pivotal point of transition for me in terms of moving into something different, shifting my perspectives, and it was so amazing to have that card come up repeatedly for me because I could really lean into that energy and not fight it, but really open myself up to it, right? And I think that's part of the invitation of tarot too, is like, how can I work through any blocks that I have around this energy? Let's say I get the Three of Swords. So how do I work with that rather than resisting it or fighting it, right? How do
Correct.
I open myself up to this energy and shift my perspective so I can use it as a tool for healing rather than having it challenge me? Not that it's not going to challenge you, but do you know what I mean about that? Like
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, for me, it's like Three of Swords. Like typically, we think that it's like betrayal or mistrust or miscommunication,
Mhm.
but that could also mean like, to me, it could also mean like self-sabotage. That means I'm
Yes,
kind
absolutely.
not trust things that I can do. Like like I'm not good enough. I'm
Yeah.
not strong enough. I'm not smart enough.
Imposter
That kind of thing.
syndrome.
Yeah, it's like self-sabotage. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like we always joke, for Virgos, right? We are our own worst enemy. Like
Oh,
we criticize
100%.
others a lot, but we are also very harsh on ourselves, that kind of thing. Yeah.
that inner mean girl that lives in my brain is vicious, and her claws are well honed over the years. And I really have to be careful how I speak to myself, right? Like I often
Yeah.
think about my kids. I've got three kids. They're 9, soon to be 10, 13, and 14. And actually, I've got a picture on my wall right beside. I've got some pictures of my friends and my family, and I've got a picture of myself at 13 months old. And I keep that there as a way to remind myself to be kind in how I speak to myself and to work on my relationship with my inner child, because it's so easy to be critical and it's so easy to be judgmental of our actions, our thoughts, questioning our worth. But somehow having that picture is much easier for me to feel compassion for that little child version of myself than it often is for me to feel compassion for me now, right? So
Yeah,
it's,
correct.
yeah, finding those ways in to kind of rehabilitate your relationship with yourself can be tricky sometimes, right?
And the shadow work and the inner child.
Mhm.
I guess I mean, I used to, when I first started in 2016 in Singapore, right? That topic about inner child healing, about dealing
Yeah,
with your shadow and your demons,
yeah.
wasn't really that open. I always joke that
Mhm.
in 2016, the era when I first started, right? Everything was Doreen Virtue. Everything was just angels, unicorns, mermaids, and fairies.
Yeah,
But there are bad fairies around. There are no, not all vampires are bad. There are the noble and good vampires. But
yeah.
as we progress, I mean, I'm very happy that the younger generation of readers here in Singapore, they are very open and they're very receptive to learning. And that, like I said, last time it used to be, oh, black magic is there to curse or hack somebody. But now I guess people are more open to say that, hey, I'm practicing Wiccan, I'm practicing witchcraft.
Mhm.
And I mean, for me, I just share that I work a lot with the herbs and with
Yes.
with
Me too.
crystals, and also with wood, because in Chinese mysticism I'm actually rabbit. I'm a wood
Mhm.
rabbit. So if you see around my room, right, everywhere there's wood. Even the
Yeah,
table I'm talking to you is wood.
yeah.
Yeah. And my mom, yes, she's Libra, so she's also our whole place is actually wood and granite, wood and
Oh, I
concrete.
love that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
and
amazing. Yeah,
and,
bringing those
and I
elements.
get kind of very agey if I'm not in nature after some time. So yeah,
Yeah,
I always love running into like the gardens or in the park somewhere around.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it
yeah.
makes such a
Animal decks
difference.
are also my favorite. Yeah, I think I might have one. Other than the hash tarot. Let me just reach out. Okay, okay, this is actually very similar to your Pacific Northwest Animal Magic, but
Oh,
it's
yeah,
all the
yeah.
darker
Oh, it's
version.
beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. This is actually an indie deck by Esther Sanchez.
Oh, okay.
So it's also very So this is deck.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's actually
That's
called
gorgeous.
Animal Magic.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
I send you a screenshot later. I think you will
Yeah,
love this deck actually. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got like I have a friend who lives in Moncton actually, which is like I said, 40 minutes away from me, and she just came out with the Likely Tarot, and it's all again nature imagery, and she's got herbal correspondences with things as well, and her death card is so beautiful. I'm gonna try and find it. Yeah, I love the star as well, but she's incorporated animals into the images, and there's different correspondences and sigils, and it's really there's food elements as well. Like there's the fig here, and it's more of a pip style deck. I love this.
Excellent.
Elephants are some of my favorite
Oh,
animals. I
elephant.
love that
Uh,
they're
I,
incorporated.
I have the altered card in Animal Magic. So this is the
Oh
auto
my
card.
gosh, that is amazing. That is beautiful. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
the
it's
death
very yin
card.
and yang. Okay,
Oh,
wow.
yeah, with the Phoenix, it's so beautiful. I'm actually going to have her design a Phoenix tattoo for me. That's something that when I was working with the Animal Spirit deck by Kim Cran, same as The Wild Unknown, I kept pulling the Phoenix card. Like I would say working with that deck, I pulled it about 50% of the time, like no joke. It was kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And I got my first tattoo a little while ago. That's my big three with my Scorpio, Libra, and Gemini.
So it's kind of like a sigil kind of
Yeah,
thing
I
for
drew
you.
my own sigil, and I think I'm gonna get my tarot symbol here, but I was thinking about doing a phoenix just because I've worked with that energy so much over the course of my life, and with the death card and the rebirth imagery, and she just, like, I love the way that she's drawn it here. It's just absolutely stunning.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of X-Men. I mean, Phoenix was one of my
Hmm.
favorite characters, other than Storm.
Yes.
I love the part where she turned dark and like
Yes. The
that was
dark
also a
phoenix.
very good
I know
part.
it's
I'll send
amazing.
you a picture of this one. So
Yeah,
you can
that would
take
be
a look.
amazing. I love that. The images are gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Okay, that reminds me. Maybe I should actually combine that with Nocturne or Luck
Yes.
Zebra for tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then that
I'll send you a picture
nocturne.
definitely. Yeah.
Is that the one? The Anima Mundi Tarot and then the Nocturna Oracle. I love
Yeah.
those decks so much.
Just give me a moment. No. Yeah. Nocturne Oracle.
Yes, I love that one so much. It's beautiful. I have that, and I also have the tarot deck that she created. And oh my
Okay.
gosh,
Was it Nocturne Tarot?
no, it's Anima Mundi Tarot. Let me
Oh,
grab
yeah.
it. Yeah, so I have the Nocturna, and then it's the Anima Mundi is the
Okay.
tarot deck that she came up with. And oh my God, the Five of Cups in this deck breaks my heart. And it's the most beautiful depiction. I just love, like, this is the Two of Wands thing. It's so beautiful. But let me grab the Five of Cups. It breaks my heart every time I see it. Oh, and another elephant, which I love. Let me see. Oh, and then the Death is a snake shedding its skin, which I think is such a beautiful image. It's just incredible. And this moon card, oh my goodness. Yeah, this Five of Cups breaks my heart every time I see it. It's the two
Uh,
penguins, it's the little dead baby.
and
And
they
I
always
just
say
like,
emperor penguins, they only mate for life. They only have one
yes.
soulmate.
And then the little baby is, I
Kind of
just,
reminds me of Happy Feet.
yes, yes, absolutely. But it like, it breaks my heart. But then that's part of the energy of the Five of Cups too, right? It's that energy of loss and release and letting go. So it's really quite amazing. But yeah, the artwork in the
That's also
Nocturne.
one of my favorite cards from Tarot Apocalypse. So the Five of Cups is actually the story of Demeter, when she couldn't find her daughter Persephone because Persephone was like
Oh
kind of
yeah,
cheated by Hades to and kept in the underworld. So
yeah.
Five of Cups is actually Demeter
Oh,
crying for her missing daughter in this deck. Yeah.
oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And she was like, okay, because she's the goddess of fertility in Greek mythology, right? Said, okay,
Yeah,
my daughter is missing, so like let's screw the world, let's let all the crops die. Yeah, I was like, okay, that was actually to me that is kind of like the sadness for the Five of Cups.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I would say that sadness in Five of Cups is even stronger and more deeper than the Three of Swords.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. It's that feeling of loss that is so
Personal
profound.
and profound, yeah.
Yeah. Another one that I absolutely love is a Spacious Tarot. Do you have this one?
Nope.
It's really lovely. Again, I've pulled almost all nature decks. I have a lot of decks that aren't nature decks, but I just happened to pick this one. I love the Fool card. It's embarking on the journey, the
It's
path
also
ahead.
very similar to there's one
Yep.
uh is it Fountain Tarot or it's a tarot deck that's based on location.
Mm,
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the deck. It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
Japanese, very Zen.
Yes, and it's the Guardian of Cups as opposed to the Queen, which is really
Okay, so they
interesting.
kind of switch the name.
Yeah, like I love this Death card too. It's beautiful. But yeah, so it's the Explorer of Swords is the Knight, and then the Page is the Child, which I love. I love this Chariot card too. But the
Oh, very
imagery
different
is,
from the way that the normal chariot looks. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. And the Devil,
Oh, okay,
like
cool.
dark woods, Dark Night of the Soul, I guess.
Yeah,
And this
and
Eight of
also a bit like a Blair Witch. It looks like the
yes,
trees in
yes,
Blair Witch Project.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And the Three of Swords, I love that it's like sticking into the ground, but the the ground is bleeding a little bit, so it's that idea. Yeah, no, and the king is no, the knight is the explorer. Let me see if I can find the king. Um, elder. The king is the elder. So I
Okay.
love that it also takes out gender
Is that the King
dissociation.
of Swords? The,
King of Wands for
King of
this one.
Wands. Okay.
Each of the court cards has a specific animal that it's associated with. So the wands are associated with the geckos, which is really, really cool. And then the pentacles. I love this hanged one. Talk about a shift in perspective. Looking
Yeah,
back at
this
the
is like you're looking at the Earth from the moon, right?
yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic deck. Like again, there's something about the imagery that is just really, really cool. And this temperance with the
Oh, I love Temperance.
yeah,
That my two favorite things to work with fire and ice.
yes, absolutely. And this judgment card, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. I don't know about you, but for me, tarot also functions as art appreciation. Like I
Yeah, it's
really,
like
it's
collecting
amazing.
artworks that I can't afford for. So there was a phase where I was very vintage. So that came after my modern phase of the urban and the light steer. So there's like ethereal vision illuminated tarot that was very
Yeah.
vintage, and there's vintage wisdom oracle which is also very the old school, and probably this oracle is a bit off. So it's
Mhm.
materia prima. So they
Okay.
base it on the elements in the periodic table.
Oh,
So I
cool.
was
I
a
love that.
chemistry student. So like
Yeah.
you have sulfur. So
Hmm.
sulfur looks a bit like what's the name, Medusa?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
talk about a flipped story. Like when you look at Medusa's story, it's actually quite tragic. Like she's labeled as a villain, but if you look at what
Yeah.
happened to her, like it's really when I was looking through the Witches of Legend, like it's kind of a re-envisioning of Medusa's story, and I love that so much, right?
Yeah, or even Lilith, I mean, her
Hmm.
story, a lot of the goddesses that, they say are bad or dark goddesses,
Yeah.
even, I mean, even the normal gods, they have their darker side. Like, a
Yes.
lot of people, like, kind of criticize Loki because most of the
Yeah.
shit and shit storm
Yes.
in Asgardian Nordic mythology is kind of
Yeah.
stirred by him, but there's a reason behind that madness
It's
or the reason behind
absolutely
the chaos.
amazing.
So
Yes.
I mean, for me, Lilith meant empowerment,
Yes. Absolutely.
especially of the feminine sex, and that
Yes.
we are. I mean, everybody is equal. Whether be it whether you're male or female, but
Mhm.
the main thing is that she believes in herself, and
Yes.
that's something that I usually want to share in my reading. That the most important thing is other people can label you as whatever. I mean, I
Yep.
have tons of people labeling me as whatever, but as long
Yeah.
as I'm passionate and dedicated to what I'm doing, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter who sees. I
Absolutely.
mean, what other people think of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
I love the
absolutely.
fact that sulfur is actually like Medusa, right? Because in kind of a forest law, you
Mhm.
to keep snakes out, right? You just put a circle of sulfur around you, right? And then the snakes
Yeah.
won't come after you. Yeah, and I kind of like that, the sulfur card is actually her card. And
Yeah.
there is okay, let's see, okay,
Just
there
want
is
to
an Atlas card. So one card is actually Atlas, and I can't remember which chemical was it. Yeah,
oh,
and
amazing.
okay, okay, okay. Let me just take a look. I like silver. Silver is like Gemini.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Yeah, that mercurial kind of quick thought
Yeah.
process. I love that. These are
Okay.
the
So
Hermit and the Moon cards from the Spacious Tarot. I just wanted to show you because I absolutely love them.
okay, it's on my list. It's on my list.
Yeah. It's always dangerous talking with other tarot readers because then I have
Yeah,
like
it's very
10,
dangerous.
10 decks.
That'd be like, okay, I think I will have to create more space. I think I probably need Doctor Strange in my house to create a wormhole where I can store the extra cards.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
right? Both the tarot cards.
yeah.
It's so funny talking to my husband about it because he's not into tarot or astrology or anything. Like he's very supportive of my practice,
Mm.
but it's not his thing, which is totally fine.
How
But
about your children? Like, is any three of them interested?
my kids,
Yeah.
yeah, my eldest daughter is. My son likes to dabble in it a little bit. My middle daughter, not so much at this point. But they're all supportive of me doing it. But the
Mm.
thing that was so interesting with my partner is if he were ever to do tarot, he would have one deck and one deck only, and that's all he would need. And he's always kind of shaking his head at my like multiple decks. But like I said to him, I get something different from each of the decks.
Yeah.
And so
You
for
find a
me,
different
my
story to
perspective.
connect with, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love to mix my decks for readings. So
Hmm.
you might come, I mean, when I do an actual reading, there's like 8 or 9 decks. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's draw cards from them. And
Yeah.
after that, at the end of the reading, it's like chaos because it's like one whole mountain of cards and boxes, right? Yeah.
But it's nice to look at different images and draw different energy from different decks. Like I go to different decks for different reasons. Like the Gentle Tarot, I go to when I need something that's a little softer and more nurturing. And if I need like a straight up answer, then I'll go to the Wild Unknown, right? Like it was yeah, no, it's really interesting and but for my daily spread that I do, I use 4 different decks and I usually pick them very carefully to see how the energy would work together and everything else. But it's really cool using different decks together because it gives me a different perspective, I feel, than I would have from just one. So yeah. Oh, it's interesting. Really, I know if my partner was into tarot, he definitely have multiple decks. Yeah, everyone's so different. It's funny. Like he's like, but it's the same meaning for the card. So why do you need different images? I'm like,
It seemed
it's
like
not the
I
same.
need different shoes for different occasions, right? I
Yeah,
need different bags for different occasions.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. And I
And
love that
I
you.
do have one particular deck which I use for mediumship, and it's actually Talking
Mhm.
to Heaven. So it's
Oh,
actually a
okay.
collaboration between Doreen Virtue and James from Prague. And
Yeah,
he's actually the executive consultant for Ghost Whisperer.
yes.
So I did
Yeah,
share
I
this
read this
story.
years ago.
Uh,
Talking to Heaven.
Correct. And it's one of
Yeah,
my favorite series, other than Buffy and Charm when in
yeah,
the earlier season. So I have this particular card that is like, okay, if I'm drawing that card out and there's someone that I'm inquiring like whether there's a loved one that has passed on, and
mhm,
that would be you are never alone. Okay,
yes,
okay. You're never alone, okay. Yeah.
yeah. It's I remember reading that book, Talking to Heaven. I would say 20 years ago, at least more than that, when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And I'm going to be 43 in June, so we're not far off age-wise. But it just brought me so much comfort reading that book. And it was so reassuring. And so I've always had a sense that there's more out there. I wasn't
Yeah.
raised with any particular
Death
religion.
isn't the only endpoint. There's some more
Yeah,
journey to go after.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even on a very basic scientific level, like we are made up of matter and matter never disappears. It just transforms into something different. And
yeah,
yeah, so even from that basic principle, it makes sense that we would move into something different. It's not going to be the same, but it's still going to exist, right? Like
yeah,
it's,
correct.
yeah,
Just like
absolutely.
magic, I can't do anything when I usually say, if someone asks, okay, let's do a love spell for me, and
Hmm.
usually my first question is there attraction in the first place? If there's no
Yes,
attraction, no matter how potent the magic that's being used, right,
yeah,
there's got to be nothing. And if you are asking someone to do a love spell, you can't be sitting at home all day, right? At least I
yeah,
need you to go to Tinder and do the swiping
yeah.
left and right, right?
Take the
If you're
first
just
step at
waiting for
least.
love to drop to you,
Yeah.
true love don't happen like that. Yeah.
No, no. And it makes me think of practical magic too, where someone comes and says, I need you to do this spell for me, and then it backfires, right? Like if it's
Yeah,
not
correct.
meant to be and you try and force something, then it's going to go sideways, right? So it's,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let me check. Oh my gosh. I just
And we
realized what
overshot the
time it
time.
is. Well, I really appreciate you chatting with me and having this conversation. It's such a treat to speak to a
Yeah.
fellow tarot reader and someone who's passionate about all the same things that I
And I
am.
have new decks to collect. And
Yes,
it's
I've
Spacious
got a whole
Tarot.
list here.
And I would definitely send you Animal Magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that sounds incredible, and I'd love to pick your brain on more decks. It's yeah, there's so many out there, and it's wonderful because there's something for everyone, right? Whatever your perspective is coming in, you can find
Or
a deck that
whatever
fits
phase in
that.
life you're in, there's
Yes.
I had
Yeah.
the phase where I wanted to go back to my roots, which is the Chinese roots.
Yeah.
So there's the Chinese tarot,
Oh,
and then there's
wonderful.
the Feng Shui tarot also. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I've got Celtic and Slavic ancestry, and I'd love to start exploring that more for myself. in the form of
I
tarot,
think
like
there's a
a different
new
Celtic.
deck out soon. I saw it on Kickstarter. That's based on Slavic tradition law. And the other Slavic deck that I have is actually Tarot of the Golden Wheel. That
Oh,
one
okay.
is based on Slavic legends.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I'll have to Tarot of the Golden.
Tarot of the Golden Wheel. I will send you the picture also.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing. I have the Slavic Lenormand, and that has been really cool to work with. And I know there's tons of Celtic decks and Celtic mythology
Yeah.
in their
This is
focus.
actually Celtic. Druidcraft is actually Celtic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, I'll have to look into it because I'm curious to look into where my roots come from and how everything kind of came
And
together for
if
me.
I'm
Yeah.
not wrong, in Druidcraft, right, the devil card is actually Cernunnos. He's like the
Oh,
horn
okay.
god.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they actually use him as the deck card for the devil, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Oh, Ten of Swords Tarot, thank you so much for joining us. It was really lovely to have a chat and
Okay.
chat. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jules. I
Yeah,
hope I'm
thank
not
you
taking too much of
too.
your
It was an
time.
absolute pleasure.
Yeah. I will send
So
you the
great.
picture of also the Tarot of the Golden Wheel, so you can take a
Oh, it
look at
sounds
that. Yeah.
fabulous. Thank you so much. And I hope you have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful rest of the weekend.
So happy Beltane to everyone in Nova
Yes, happy
Scotia,
belting.
and happy new moon. Is it still new moon in Taurus on your side, or is that
Yes,
past?
it was yesterday, I think, at in mid-afternoon, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So
So it's
we
still
are
in
kind
the
of having
energy.
it. I'm
Yeah.
kind of preparing for my Mercury retrograde. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, to me, it's not that scary. It just means that
No.
I need to give a little bit more buffer when I'm traveling, and
Yes.
I need to give buffer for people misinterpreting what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and me
absolutely.
myself not getting frustrated when people don't understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I don't find it scary. It's more I just need to be careful with communication and careful with all of my details and make sure that I'm double checking everything.
And there's backup plans in case the main
Yes,
plan fails, right?
backup
Yeah.
for my backup.
Okay, thank you, Drew, so much. Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me
so much.
on. Take care.
Bye. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.